it's not really was meant to be there. It is a byproduct of the chipset that exists there. We did not design the chipset to reap the power points. Now, this is standardization. Is it going to create new ways of designing chipsets for future handsets?
Yeah, well, I think it is, because sort of if you look at the history, location was always like an afterthought. When you look at the GSM standard when they first did it, they weren't thinking location, and they sort of forced location into that standard and used what was available. And as time's progressed, the latest standards, for example, LTE, they thought all about location straight away as part of the design. So I think location is much more prevalent now, and I think new technologies will become location enabled.
Yeah, I mean, and that's LTE is a perfect example, right? So AFLT is the forward link ranging of the CDMA pilot. So it was an afterthought, so to speak, of how could I range to the CDMA base station? Hey, I'll take the pilot. It's just there. It's easy to, read that energy. But in LTE, they didn't do that from the core cellular infrastructure. They created a positioning referencing. So each base station, these base stations are provisioned to send, these pulses just for the purposes of positioning in the mobile side is, hardware and software design is specifically meant for the ranging. So it's not deployed yet, so only time will tell, but OTDA is supposed to, be, as good or superior to AFLT. So I think you'll see more and more of that on the wireless LAN side. There's a lot of opportunities to define more and more measurements. I think that's where we got the 802.11b and K and N standards way back when they were looking at some of these things, and we're just starting to now see the implementation.
I actually have one last, I don't know whether it's a question or a point, but Ted was talking about working with the venue owners to get information in a standardized format. Now, as an operator, I'm always concerned about the fact that I have provided a device to my users and it doesn't work. And they think that it's because I have a problem, but it might be very well be a problem that, the information which is there provided is not correct, right? So I'm just wondering whether there should be a standardized way for creating these aisles and all that, right? You're looking at aisles and everybody does it their own way, So maybe there should be a standardized way of, what do you think?
Well, there's a certain point where you could have some kind of agreement, like, if you provide this information, it will be accurate, it will be up to date. There's some kind of service level agreement potential between, an operator like Verizon and whether they'll take that information and use it reliably. But it could be practically a legal agreement that the information will be kept up to date and you'll be provided with appropriate updates.
So Ted, is that something in the works?
Well, I think it's early in this process, but certainly I think if the venue owner is going to demand some rights over the data, they also have some responsibilities to make it as accurate as possible. I think it goes both ways.
True, but then at the end of the day, by the time my user gets to know about it, there's already been a lot of fuss. A lot of executive VPs are running around, saying, what's wrong?
Yeah, the line's definitely blurred. If you take today, let's just take, let's say, GPS and the AFLT technology, and I download some Android application on my phone, I can probably more easily separate, whether I'm getting good content in terms of it's telling me where the Starbucks is versus, the actual geographic position's wrong. Right? I can kind of separate, well, it's the device, and it's the carrier versus it's the Android app that I downloaded or the particular website I'm going to get the information. But yeah, it blurs a little bit when you get to indoor type positioning and there's, now venue specific,
right.
Information that's not, but both the information to the consumer, but it's also part of the systems data, the positioning as well. So I do think it's going to blur a little bit, and I think it's going to be one of the challenges.
Yep, real challenge. And we spent a lot of time in Verizon Wireless writing, as certainly Kirk and Frank are aware of. Spent a lot of time writing test plans, And certainly, and I've had a lot of discussions with Farshid about, in GPS it's fine because GPS is well defined, but testing anything like Wi-Fi or sensors, next challenges will be a real challenge. I'd like to talk to you, about.
Yeah, I should add that in order to participate in this standardization activity, companies or institutions need to join the US TAC, Technical Activities Group, which happens to be AIM. AIM Global is you become a member of AIM, and then you are part of the US delegation, and then of course you can participate. And we welcome participation by the more the merrier, and the end result will be better. So that would be the way to participate.
Thank you.
It's definitely a good synergy with definitely the standards, because for AFLT, OTDA, and GPS, you have minimum performance.
Right, right.
But you get into Wi-Fi, it'll improve the front service.
Right, great.
Correctness of indoor information coming from end users, because that argument can go against anything that we provide to users. Any application which provides Starbucks location might be wrong, GPS location might be wrong, indoor location coming from like the company might be wrong. So there's that problem.
Right. See, in the case of GPS or anything with wireless, wide area network, related thing, we can actually, it's easier to test, and also it's well defined, right? Like GPS is based on, the whole thing is based on fairly well defined algorithms, so we can figure it out. But Wi-Fi, location, for example, is very dependent, or even anything indoor is very dependent upon the venue, right? So whereas GPS, I think, is more generalized. It's based on the shape of the Earth, essentially. Correct. Right. And the shape of the Earth also, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Simple.
Right. That's why, So there is a philosophical difference, and it translates into practice. You and I, we had discussions about how do you test Wi-Fi really, right? Localization. So. Thank you very much. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, just to follow up on that, I think it's very important that whenever when you use a particular source of location, whether it be a Wi-Fi access point or whatever, you use ancillary information to just validate that. So if you also have the cellular location, the cell ID or something, and the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi information you're getting is saying that it's a city, 100 miles away, then obviously there's maybe something wrong with the Wi-Fi stuff. So I think the key thing is that all the time you validate all your information, and when you identify there's a problem with, or a potential problem with any information, that you tag it that way, and then hopefully once there is some bad information in the system, that it gets tagged that way, and very quickly you can stop using that information.
Thanks.